Was the Inspector General telling David Grusch what he could and couldn't say during the hearing? Chris Mellon talks about UFO videos that haven't been released. What the heck is NASA up to? And a whole lot more. It's time for another UFO News Roundup. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Okay, let's listen to what George Knapp had to say on the recent episode of Weaponized with him and Jeremy Corbell, and they had special guests Bryce Zabel and Ross Coulthard on. And a great interview, great episode. I encourage you to go watch the full thing. And I'll talk about a few things they did discuss during the interview. But first, I wanted to play this snippet where George talks about how the Inspector General, Chuck McAuliffe, who also I believe is Grusch's lawyer, was telling him what he could and couldn't say during the hearing.
It was funny, you guys weren't able to hear this, but at the hearing in Washington this week, this congressional hearing, so we're sitting next to Chuck McCullough, his attorney, Jeremy on one side, me on the other, and every time a question was directed to Dave, Chuck would give him a one-word direction, no. And was almost always no.
He'd say no, not no. Usually he'd say careful,
yeah.
Dave. Because
well, I think that what I heard most was no.
Really? Yeah.
Meaning, no, don't answer that. And then there'd be a slight little delay, one,
That's right.
2, 3 beats, and then Dave would explain why he couldn't say anything more. And, you know, I think probably a lot of people watching this thing at home would be frustrated. Well, why can't he answer that stuff? Oh, he's trying to protect himself. He's in very precarious legal position right now. Even though there are supposedly whistleblower protections, there are things that he cannot say, not in public. But, you know, the effect was that I think it whetted Congress's appetite for more info. They were pissed that they couldn't get him in a skiff to talk about these things on the record, although in a classified setting. They were ticked off that there had been these roadblocks thrown up for a committee of Congress that's making an actual, investigation into some things that they're supposed to investigate. They have an oversight responsibility in the Constitution. They're supposed to do that. And the fact that they brought this witness who tells them the things that he did tell them were absolutely astonishing. I mean, it's stuff that Ross, you and Bryce know really well. But, you know, the things that he could not answer, I think, had a greater effect. The fact that he could not tell them on the record in a formal hearing under oath. I think that because of the nature of the questions that they asked and the responses that he gave, that he hooked them in a way that he would never hook them before if he had straightforward answered those questions.
Yeah, they are hooked now, and they're trying to get a skiff with him, and I really hope they do get a skiff with him so that they can know what the hell is going on. And hopefully, once they do, they can tell us. Finally, we have a body of Congress actually interested in this issue in a public way, and there's no way they can weasel out of it. You know, the Intel committees, they can weasel out of it. We didn't even know it had happened until 2 years later. And they can say, heck, you know, we weren't even in the room when those debriefings with Grusch were going on. But there's no way the members of the Oversight Committee have that luxury because we know that they were there. Ross Coulthard confirms again that he was talking to witnesses who had firsthand experience with these alleged non-human craft before he met with Grusch. Ross goes on to say that some of these witnesses were not told what they were looking at, but they were aware that it was non-human technology. Jeremy Corbell points out that in some cases they were told what they were looking at. Ross agrees and says affirmative. Yeah, so that's really interesting that in some of these reverse engineering situations, some of these people studying this stuff weren't aware of what they were studying, and others were. And that's worth mentioning because that was like the Mick West explanation for reverse engineering. Well, I bet, Mick said, a bunch of these guys didn't even know what they were looking at. They were told it was Chinese and Russian technology. And it appears that in some cases that may have been correct. But in other cases, it was not. And that is also very much worth noting. Also, of course, if they're working on intact UFOs, which it appears they were in some of these cases, probably not Russian or Chinese technology. Okay, on to other news involving NASA. A former NASA astronomer is calling out NASA Director Bill Nelson, basically calling him disingenuous and part of the cover-up. This is in a tweet from Marian Rudnick. I'm probably mispronouncing that name. And he says, to Senator Bill Nelson, you say you're considering using space-based sensors in order to get answers about aliens. As a former NASA astronomer, I'm calling you out. You are stalling. You know that Nat Recon OFC program Ascension already has been and is collecting such data. Release it. Yes, you tell him, Marion, release that data. Release that censored data. What is he talking about? What is sentient? Well, if you can rely upon Wikipedia, sentient is an automated intelligence analysis system under development by the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, of the United States federal government. A 2012 internal NRO document declassified in 2019 describes it as an ongoing research and development program, which is managed and operates out of the NRO. The program architecture was developed to demonstrate advanced technologies and techniques to revolutionize the current tasking. Okay, so that's what Wikipedia says. However, we know from the hearing with David Grusch that there are satellite systems in place that track UFOs, that track UAPs, and that censored data has been withheld deliberately from Congress. So that is probably a sentient or sentient adjacent, if I can use that word or even say that word. And so that's probably what Marianne is talking about. That NASA either has its own satellites or has access to satellites that monitor UFO and UAP activity. And of course they would, right? I mean, they're the ones sending these satellites up in many cases. So Bill Nelson, he has just announced the creation of a new committee. He's already established one committee to look into UFOs, and now he's establishing a new committee that's going to give us some answers theoretically later this month. In August sometime, apparently. So that's going to give us a definitive answer on whether or not there is alien presence here on Earth. Judging by the honesty of Bill Nelson so far, I'm not super excited about that. Bill Nelson is outwardly very enthusiastic about the UAP enigma and wanting to study and get to the bottom of it. But really, I think that is just so much lip service. And he, of course, as the director of NASA, is part of the cover-up. And apparently, I'm not the only one thinking this. Apparently, Marian Rudnick, a former NASA astronomer, thinks the same thing. And he has more information to go on than I do, talking about this sentient satellite system. But what do you guys think? Is NASA covering stuff up? I've made several videos reporting on ways that NASA seems to be covering this stuff up. Airbrushing stuff out of photos, scrubbing videos, concealing evidence of alien structures on the moon and possibly Mars. The list goes on. Faking footage from the space station. I really don't understand that one. But anyway, NASA has been hiding and concealing, according to my research and my understanding, UFO information for many, many years. What do you guys think, though? Is Bill Nelson going to change all that? Is he actually committed and dedicated to furthering our understanding of UFOs? Let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, we also have some really good comments from Chris Mellon, and I apologize for the quality of this video. Clearly, it's a video of a video. And now I'm going to screen capture the video of the video. Let's hear what Chris Mellon has to say about other UFO videos, hopefully that we'll get to see someday.
You've seen some pretty compelling photographic evidence.
And I've seen some very compelling evidence.
evidence that I very much wish was in the public domain. When I'm talking to the scientists at the Galileo Project, for example, and at the Scientific Coalition for U.A.P. studies, I so wish that they were privy to this information, and that the public was privy to this information.
What happened when you looked at those photographs? Come on, put me there.
Well, it's like...
I want to be you for a minute.
It's like, wow, you know, like, I can't think of any way to explain this other than, you know, I mean, this is not something in our inventory, I'm pretty sure.
Not in our inventory. I bet it's not, unless it's been reverse engineered or gifted to us by the beings, as I reported on in several videos. It appears that the beings have been working secretly with the control group for many years and has probably gifted us technology. If you haven't seen those videos, check that out, because it is definitely eye-opening to hear Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineers and directors of Area 51 and engineers at Area 51 talking about beings there working with the people there, helping them develop technology. Meanwhile, this video has been making the rounds, getting a lot of steam the last few days. It's an old video from Paul Hillier, you know, an early advocate of UFO disclosure, and he's sharing information about what beings have told people, and he's talking specifically about a timeline the beings have given people.
Your leaders said the vast majority of your population wasn't ready for anything like us yet. So we made time agreements with your leaders as to when your people would be made aware of our presence. Your air, your water are contaminated. Your forests, jungles, trees, and plant life are dying. There are several breaks in your food chain. You have an overwhelming amount of nuclear and biological weapons, which include nuclear and biological contamination. Your planet is overpopulated. Warning, it is almost to the point of being too late, unless your people act. There are better ways of deriving energy.
Anyway, it goes on talking about what the being said and how they're giving us warnings and how they have already been in contact with our leaders and established a timeline for disclosure. And if people don't do something about it, they will. Has that time come to pass? Is everything we're seeing now part of a scheduled disclosure? And, you know, to forestall the aliens coming and taking matters into their own hands? I don't know. People seem to be sharing this video warning against a possible alien false flag invasion leading to a one world government. I don't see the alien false flag invasion as a true threat. Anything's possible. The control group certainly has the technology. They don't even need holograms. I mean, they've got their own ships. They can just fly around and pretend to be aliens shooting at people. So I really, and they could have done that at any point in the last few decades. So I really don't see the alien false flag agenda as a genuine threat to our freedom. But nothing is off the table as far as I can tell. However, I do think it's worth noting that aside, this very consistent message that the beings seem to be sending people, their concerns about the environment. They tell that to abductees all the time. I've even talked about examples where they have seemingly conditioned abductees or contactees into being very environmentally aware and sensitive. And that is borne out by studies on contactees saying that after their contact experiences, they are now more environmentally sensitive. And under hypnosis, some have, recalled having those experiences of being conditioned thusly. I had to work in thusly somewhere. I haven't said thusly in a while. But I think that's really interesting that the beings had this consistent message that they are delivering, but at the same time, they've got the tech. They've been working with our guys, I think, according to my research, in private labs and, Area 51 and that kind of stuff, giving us technology. So pony up with the tech guys. I mean, if you're that concerned about the environment and whatever, just give us the technology that we need to have clean energy, and we wouldn't have this problem, and you wouldn't have to keep on giving warnings and conditioning people into being environmentally sensitive. So are the aliens all talk and no action, or do they have more of a hands-off approach? They want us to do it for them ourselves. But if they wanted us to do it for ourselves, why are they consistently telling people to do this and conditioning people to do it? Is it a false narrative that they are putting out there to get us to think that they care about the environment when really they don't? Or are they trying to kind of have it both ways? They're not trying to be overt in terms of giving us technology, but they want to send a clear signal that we should do it for ourselves, even if they have to condition people into thinking that way. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Meanwhile, I'll finish up today with this piece, why it's time for Christians to take UFOs seriously. This is from premierchristianity.com. And this is, kind of a long article all about the, a UFO situation. And, but it goes on to talking about various objections that Christians have to UFOs. Christians should not equate being valued with being unique, and the Christian response. And then it goes on to the biblical objection to UFOs, the anthropological objection to UFOs. ET existence would mean humans are not unique. The soteriological, I can't even say that word. The gospel doesn't leave room for ET existence. And it goes through all the various objections that Christians might have for, admitting the existence of ETs. But then the piece wraps up by saying, my point is not to advocate for any one position, only to highlight avenues for how one might think through the questions. There is room within Scripture to accommodate extraterrestrial life. Admittedly, the questions are hermeneutically challenging. What is that word? Hermeneutically challenging? I'll let you figure that one out. But only in the sense of expanding our theological horizons, not violating them. So the upshot is that Christians may be coming on board with the whole UFO thing, the whole David Grusch hearing thing, and all the information coming out may be changing in a fundamental way how a lot of people in Western society relate to UFOs, to the point where you have articles in Christian sites now talking openly about at least keeping your mind open to the possibility of ET life and how it doesn't go against any teachings in the Bible. So I think that's super fascinating. I'm non-religious myself. I was an atheist all my life until a few years ago when I began having metaphysical experiences. And among those experiences, one of the most powerful was actually a Jesus experience. Not necessarily, scripture, religious experience exactly. But I'll let you watch my video that I call my Jesus Ayahuasca UFO. You can find that in my playlist that's called My Experiences. I have a lot of resonance with that faith, even if I don't actually belong to it. But like I say, I've had a powerful event that has made me question my own lack of faith. So that is really interesting to me that more dogmatic-minded Christians might be getting on board this. But let me know your thoughts about all of this. We've got really interesting stuff coming out from Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp about David Grusch now, or not now, but during the hearing, being directed about what questions he could not answer. We have Bill Nelson, head of NASA, possibly being exposed as a liar, with some interesting information about these satellite systems known as Ascension. And we have Christians coming aboard UFOs And a really interesting time to be a ufologist. But let me know what you guys think about all this news in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. And if you want to support the channel in a bigger way, there's a PayPal button below, or you can become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and thank you guys so much. There are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with the Cosmic Road, signing out.